So, how is your inner child doing right now? Have you ever thought about them? Ever considered their existence? An inner child is a person's supposed original or true self, usually regarded as concealed in adulthood. This is its definition in the dictionary, and in simpler words, an inner child is the hidden childlike part of one's personality that is secreted through time because of maturing, first introduced to us by Carl Jung. Sure, a lot of people might have heard about the subpersonality that somehow rules our conscious mind, either on the internet or by being forced to unleash a childhood trauma in a therapy session. It's a subtle thing. This child grows within you and is only triggered by abuse or abandonment, which is why even I prefer to disregard it, overlook it, and neglect the horrible outcomes of my innocence. 70% of US adults think that they have experienced traumatic events in the past. And yes, it is true that most of these traumatic events occur to us when we are little, when we're in our utmost vulnerable. Most of us think it's stupid. Running around with bare feet on the pavement, being afraid of a lightning strike, being too invested in a cartoon to listen in on the parents arguing in another room. Yet some, not many, recall those days with a smile upon their faces, content with their precious naivety. And these are the people I strive to be like. They revisit childhood memories without a single look back, keeping an open mind, and they're free from the sorrows of teenage angst or adulthood simply because of acknowledging the ups and downs of their first stage of life. They left the door open. Fundamentally, it's beneficial for us to be healing our inner child because it doesn't just improve our emotional regulation, but also helps us come up with healthier coping mechanisms, such as reading, writing, painting, and taking care of yourselves. But most importantly, it lets us realize how traumatic events affect us to this day and will affect us in the future, all of which is proven by BetterUp, a mental health care center practicing it for years. The reason why I, of all people, am standing here talking to you about the inner workings of our childhood minds is because I myself have been struggling through events in the past that have shaped my perception of this world. I revisited her once through the lens of a kaleidoscope. Little me used to absolutely adore those instances of pure fascination, and I had this stunning imagination based on fantasy books and stargazing nights and little villages I made out of clay. I created this sort of world, a town that I could only witness through the lens of a kaleidoscope, as though an explorer searching for the lakes, the trees, and the seaside. I had a fairy tale of my own, and oh, was it enchanting. It was my form of escapism back then, and it was better off this way. From then on, I perceived that we as individuals and as human beings subconsciously try to escape, and we usually do that by practicing healthy coping mechanisms, such as the ones I've explained to you today. But there are times where we inflict unhealthy ones upon ourselves, such as the ones I will discuss with you later. Escapism itself is a maladaptive form of coping that involves changing one's behavior to try to avoid thinking or feeling things that are uncomfortable to us. Avoidance coping usually leads us to an estrangement from the difficulties of reality, and that is where unhealthy coping mechanisms creep in, such as denial, isolation, even downward social comparisons. Honestly speaking, I never even realized that isolation and escapism within me roots from my own childhood. I created this world where I could be free, safe, and most importantly, utterly myself. And I have internalized all of the crucially difficult parts of my life, assuming that it was going to be too tragic for me to deal with. 1 in 7 children have suffered through child abuse and/or neglect in the past year, as stated by SAM-HSA, or Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. When teenage years hit me, I developed expectations for this world, but also began seeing the flaws within it, and also within me. Those expectations, frustrations, anxieties, broken hope, broken hearts, and forgotten dreams felt like an ever-longing obstacle for me, and I couldn't see the world in any different lens, maturing enough to realize that all of this is too exhausting for me to deal with. A wounded inner child usually forces us to internalize all the hatred and anxiety, frustration, and the need to escape within us, all the while unhealthy coping mechanisms control our perception of the world. Yet we must understand that our inner child is still a part of us. It is our soul. We never lose them, only neglect them until we inevitably dissociate from the real world, which is why I urge you to speak to your inner child, to revisit those childhood memories, to at least invite them to a tea party, to write them a letter or look for guidance before the sweet innocence of being alive vanishes from sight. And you might think that you don't need them anymore, yet they are the ones who shall help you and guide you through this journey of escapism safely and without a form of destruction. The psychology behind this technique of therapeutic work is based on a concept as part of several therapies that divide a person's personality into different parts in order to make sense of them. Revisiting her was a blast. We gazed into the lens of a kaleidoscope together, reminiscing about the times of hope and enchantment, but also realizing that this little fairy tale of my own could become a reality once I face it with an open mind. I finally remembered that I once was alive and not just existing or surviving. And I wish that for all of you. So, I'm going to ask you again, have you ever thought about your inner child? Well, I hope you did now. Invite them in. It's never too late. And don't forget to leave your door open. Thank you.